Hello, my name is Thor Hansen, and this is my entry into the 2016 VREP scholarship competition. I'm going to show kind of a quick tour around how I put together this image here. Alright, so when I put this together, it involved several scenes, layers, and a couple of render layers. There's actually quite a bit going on because I decided to use the compositor quite a bit to put together the final image, and so I had to separate things out. But this one here, this layer just kind of contains the general, what you'd expect. The table, these background blocks, everything on the table, and the chairs. The exception to that would be, there's one thing it doesn't include, and that is the candlestick and the flame. Those I placed the candlestick on a separate layer and also on a separate render layer. And the reason I did that was because I found it difficult to set up the lighting for the candlestick in a way that also worked well with the lighting for this table. Setting one up would be too bright for the other type of thing, and so I decided to just separate them out so I could control their lighting individually and then put them together in the compositor. It worked a lot better to balance the light out that way. On my next layer here, this one is entirely for lighting, and I have three main lights here. First one is a spot lamp, and that is to kind of create like this open doorway effect, as if there's a restaurant off to the right. So that's what that is for. I have it kind of set to a yellowy light. Then I have a more white light. It's a sun lamp. That's used to create the moonlight effect. And this third thing here is a plane, and I put my background image on that plane, and I set it up. Hold on here. Alright, I set it up so that it wouldn't show up to the camera when it rendered. Instead, it would only also it doesn't cast a shadow, but it would influence reflections and refractions in the glassware on the table. Because I did put the image in the compositor, but I didn't want the glassware to be reflecting like a default gray, just kind of wash. Like that doesn't work very well. And so that's what I used to kind of ensure that my glassware would get the right kind of general look without actually putting my background in there. Moving on this scene, I also have another layer here, and this one, this is just a dome, and this is also for lighting purposes. This dome is also set up with a material similar to that plane, a little simpler. Oh, hold on, I gotta find it here. No. Here we go. Okay. Yep. So it doesn't show up to the camera, and it doesn't create any shadows, but what it does is it just kind of generally lightens the whole scene and keeps the lighting balanced so it doesn't get too dark in the shadowy places, and also makes the shadows slightly blue, as I've been told outdoor shadows are supposed to be. So that's the purpose of that dome. Moving on, I have another scene here on which I made the background. Now, I made the background myself in Blender 2. For the background, I use Blender Internal rather than Cycles, just because Blender Internal renders faster, and using Cycles would have just been overkill, I guess. See, there, it renders in just a few seconds, which is really nice. And all I really did to make the background was I placed some shadeless spheres of various colors in the pattern I wanted in 2D space, without really paying attention to how they were arranged in 3D space, because it didn't really matter to me in this situation since the camera wasn't going to be moving. All I had to really pay attention to was how it looked to the camera. So that's all I really did for that. I have another scene here that is entirely dedicated to the flame of the candle, and I went through several different attempts trying to make this flame. This candlestick here is just linked over from the other scene, so I know where to put the flame. The flame itself is really just an orange polygon. I tried fire simulations and I tried other methods to make it, but for just this little flame like this, all those were overkill or they didn't look very good. And so I found it was easiest to just make an orange polygon, and then if I go in the compositor here, and then do my adjustments in the compositor to give it the look I wanted. So I start out with my background image, and I do some glare and blur effects since there is a slight depth of field on this. And then over that I lay the table, the chairs, the dishes, all that is in one layer. And then over that, I lay the candle stick. And then finally, I put the flame over that. And with the flame, I do a little bit of like dilations, blurs, erodes, and adjust the color slightly because it's easiest for me to do that in the compositor here for a still image like this. And that's just kind of how it all flows together to create the full effect. There is one more thing I'd like to show you, though, back on my main scene and layer. Right here. Okay, I just want to mention how I went about making this tablecloth because I had a lot of trouble the first time I did it. The first time I tried to do this, I tried draping it over a circular mesh, like a table, like a cloth, but it didn't work very well because I had to use way too many subdivisions. So instead I used pinning here. I created a vertex group to represent, or a vertex group that included the circular part of the table here that you see, and I chose that to be pinned. That way the rest of the cloth would just kind of drape down around it. I found it worked way better than trying to actually drape it over an object, and I did not need nearly as many subdivisions, and my computer didn't crash this way and things. And then also I put a wind source here to just create kind of a nice ruffling effect of the tablecloth. Yeah, so that's all I have to show you. Thanks for watching.